My name is Camille Collison, and I'm the co-lead for Respectful Terminology Platform Project, and also the chair of the National Indigenous Knowledge and Language Alliance, of which Respectful Terminology Platform Project is a part of. And I'm a member of the Tahltan Nation, and I want to welcome you all here today. And I'll just give our co-lead and co-host a chance to introduce herself as well. I also want to state that I'm the university librarian at the University of Fraser Valley, and currently on Stowell-Temek, so the sacred land of the school.
And hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Stacey Allison-Casson. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Information Science at Dalhousie University. I'm a member of the Métis Nation of Ontario and co-lead of the Respectful Terminology Platform Project. And I'm coming to you today from Halifax, also known as Kjipuktuk in Mi'kma'ki. Yes, Camille and I are co-leads of a Respectful Terminology Platform Project. And this is a project that is seeking to create a platform to provide access and protocols and ways of making Indigenous terminology available. And this is a project that is funded at this stage by the Mellon Foundation. So we are grateful to the Mellon Foundation for providing resources to make this webinar series happen. I'm going to turn it back over to Camille.
So thank you again for joining us today, and we want to welcome you here. As you know, that we are very committed to at NICLA. Our mission is really to unify and amplify the voice of Indigenous people, so First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people in the country now known as Canada, to really nurture a community of practice related to Indigenous knowledge, cultural memory, language, and Indigenous ways of knowing. And we have many communities, and the Respectful Terminology Platform really cuts across all of our 5 communities, which are our archives, culture and heritage, teaching and learning, library, and museum. And so we really want to elevate and amplify Indigenous people's land. And as many of you are aware, most of what is now known as North America and other places around the globe are really located on Indigenous people's ancestral and many times unceded traditional territories. And we want to acknowledge that today. And I'll turn it back to Stacey to introduce our amazing presenter today.
So once again, welcome everyone. Really so delighted to have our first session to start off. And so the session is entitled Subject Headings Describing Indigenous Peoples in the RVM, a tailor-made methodology and extraordinary project. And I'm going to introduce our speaker, Suzanne Brilliant, from the Repertoire de Vedette Métayer. And Suzanne, I should just let everyone know, is a member of our project team on the technical working group. So again, doubly excited to both have her speak, and always grateful for her participation in this work. Suzanne Brilliant began her career as a reference librarian at the Assemblée nationale du Québec from 2001 to 2011, as head of user services section at the Bibliothèque de l'Université Laval for the next 10 years, and she now holds a position as control vocabulary librarian at the Repertoire de Vedette Métayer team. And so I am going to pass it over to Suzanne. So just before we start, sorry, Suzanne, I'm almost ready. Just to let you know, Suzanne is going to give a presentation for about 30 minutes. And then we are going to have some time for Q&A. So please do make use of the Q&A option in the Zoom. And also to let everyone know, we will be making the recording available after the session today. Okay, so take it away, Suzanne.
Thank you so much. I'll share my screen. Let me try to do this. Okay. I think you have my presentation on your screen. Okay. Well, hello, and thank you for being here. And thank you to Nicola team for the invitation and the opportunity to talk to you about our project. You'll hear from my thick Quebec accent that English is not my first language. I promise I'll do my best to be as clear as possible. Thank you for your understanding. So my name is Suzanne Briand. I'm a non-Indigenous person descended from French settlers on both my mother's and father's sides. I was born on the territory of the Wolastoqey Nation, which runs from the St. Lawrence River to the Bay of Fundy, the watershed of the St. John River. This is the photo on the screen. The St. John River, which long ago was called Wolastoq, meaning the beautiful and generous river. I live, work, and talk to you today from Quebec City, a territory that has been inhabited, crossed, and frequented by several First Nations. In a spirit of friendship and solidarity, I would like to pay tribute to the first peoples of these lands, including the Wendat, Wabanaki, Innu, Atikamekw, Wolastoqiyik. Here's what I propose. I'll start by briefly introducing the RVM, and then I'll talk in detail about our revision project, the methodology we've developed, the main changes that have been made so far, and the tools we've created to support library staff and users through these changes. And we'll close by Q&A session. Répertoire de vedettes matières. What is it? Well, first of all, we call it RVM for short, and it's easier to say in English, right? It's the thesaurus used by French-speaking libraries across Canada and other countries to index their resources. RVM is bilingual, meaning that all French subject headings have English equivalents. These equivalents come from various thesauri, LCSH, MESH, CSH, AAT, FAST from OCLC, and for some headings, Homosaurus, or they may be in-house translations. It's an encyclopedic thesaurus ranging from medicine to philosophy and music and video games. Let's go back in time a little bit. We can remember that the Library of Congress began creating subject headings in 1897. 1946 marked the beginning of the translation and adaptation of LCSH by librarians at Université Laval. At first, the work was for the needs of Université Laval only, but other French-speaking libraries showed interest, and the répertoire began to be shared. That's how, in 1974, RVM was recognized as the national indexing standard in French in Canada. That makes 50 years this year. It's quite unusual for a national standard to be developed and updated in a university rather than a national library. Well, you know, it's Canada. It doesn't make any sense, but it's working and we keep doing it. But more seriously, in my opinion, it gives us a flexibility we might not have otherwise. The last paper edition was published in 1983, and since 2010, libraries have been able to access RVM via our website. RVM was last issued on CD-ROM in 2017. If you know what a CD-ROM is, don't say a word. We are very few to know, so it's our superpower. We want to keep the RVM relevant. For example, since last year, RVM has also been offered as linked data. The aim is to structure RVM metadata to make it machine readable within the framework of the semantic web. And that's all I know about that. We often talk about the RVM, but there are several RVMs. RVM subjects is the main one, of course, and the largest, with some 342,000 authority records. There are also 3 specialized thesauri: genre forme, means of performance in music, and democratic groups. LC has the same. And the most recent, RVM FAST, which is the equivalent of OCLC's FAST, but in French. It's a faceted thesaurus. All our thesauri are in Mark 21 and now in linked data. We are a small and dedicated team, 6 people for about 1,300 requests per year. There's no specialization among librarians. We do all subjects. I have to tell you that RVM is available by subscription, but we have plans to open it up to everyone before long. The institutions that use RVM come from all walks of life: governmental, educational, academic, municipal, paramunicipal, and private. Most users are Canadian, and there are also users in Belgium, Spain, Lebanon, France, the United States. That completes the picture I wanted to paint of the RVM. Now let's get to the art of the matter, our project to revise the vocabulary describing Indigenous peoples in the RVM. It was the wish of the RVM Governance Committee to get the work underway. It's a project that's part of the RVM's strategic planning, and above all, our customers asked us to do it with increasing insistence. So in 2021, we were given a fairly flexible mandate, but there was one thing that was non-negotiable. We had to work in co-creation with First Peoples. For us, this is essential. Our goal is, therefore, to change the problematic and outdated French words used in the RVM or other French words that respectfully describe First Nations, Métis Nation, and Inuit by working with partners from these peoples. You must know the political slogan, "Nothing about us without us." Well, that absolutely applies to our context. The values that guide us in our project are just that: an engagement with communities to hear and integrate their perspective. Let's talk methodology. Well, first, I want to tell you about our usual methodology. Our usual method is based on written documentation: dictionaries, encyclopedias, books, articles. And what's more, we base our subject headings on the principle of literary warrant. In other words, the creation of a subject heading is based on an existing work to be indexed. As you know, written documentation has its biases, a Western, Eurocentric point of view. Albert Einstein is quoted as saying, "Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results." So if I wanted different results, unbiased results, I needed a different methodology. But what kind of project are we talking about? We often speak of decolonization projects, but is it really what we're doing? Scientific literature increasingly distinguishes between decolonization and decoloniality. In the book on decoloniality, Concepts, Analytics, Praxis, Walter Mignolo says decolonization originally meant freeing a colony to allow it to become self-governing or independent, to build the former colonized own nation state. Is that really what we do? Later in the book, Mignolo explains decoloniality aims are to delink from the colonial matrix of power in order to imagine and engage in becoming decolonial subjects. But delinking is only the first step. What follows is living decolonially, that is, assuming and engaging decolonial options. At RVM, we build on this theoretical position. Concretely, we recognize that there's a problem and we are committed to working to correct it and to develop a sustained, respectful relationship with Indigenous communities. What we want is to integrate the Indigenous perspective. So we've developed a different approach based on meetings with First Peoples partners. It's not very complicated. I prepare a table with the problematic subject headings, and in working meetings, we discuss, exchange, and above all, on our part, we listen. And what our partners tell us is what we integrate into the subject headings. With this methodology, our sources are our partners, not dictionaries. As it's a large corpus, we work along two areas of work: generic terminology and specific terminology to each nation. Depending on the set of headings we're working on, we'll be looking for different partners. For the generic terminology, because it affects several nations, we decided to revise it with First Nations consultants, people who know Indigenous issues, who work with the various First Peoples, who know what is used to name this or that concept and what it is no longer used. They can explain to us the problems this or that word poses and suggest the right expression. In addition to our consultants, we have an indexer, a reference librarian, a librarian from Library and Archives Canada, who knows CSH very well, the library technician from RVM, and myself. For the terminology specific to each nation, we find people who are willing to work with us people who work in Indigenous cultural organizations on language-related issues, who can see the problems in our subject headings and give us the right ways of naming the different concepts. It's not a quick method. It still takes time to find our partners. One organization that really inspired me was the University of Alberta, with, among others, Dr. Sharon Farnell, who uses the expression working at the speed of trust. That's what we want to do too. It's these people who make this work and the results possible. They have my deepest gratitude. Miigwech, Chinishkumitin, Nakurmik, Woliwan, merci. I'm now going to show you the changes that have been made. The changes began on May 1st, 2023, and it continues each month, depending on what we're ready to change. We've introduced the terms peuple autochtone and Première Nation as head of the subject headings. We have completed the work for the Atikamekw, Wolastoqey, and Métis Nation. We removed the bracketed qualifier that was present in 695 nation name subject headings. The word used for qualifier was an obsolete word, one we no longer want to use. It was therefore removed. We modify a number of subject headings of the classes of person type and what we call qualified subject headings. In the next few slides, I'll give you details of the basic changes that have been made. I must warn you that you will see some disrespectful words on the screen. I'm really sorry about that. Our plan is to eliminate these insulting words. Unfortunately, to explain the changes we've made, I still have to use them. Please forgive me for that. We haven't touched the subject headings autochtone. It's the heading with the larger scope, the indigenous peoples of the entire planet. With our partners, we agreed to use the expression peuple autochtone to designate the indigenous peoples of all three Americas. The subject heading for indigenous peoples living in Canada is peuple autochtone -- Canada. You can see on the first line the use of the expression Première Nation. This is how the CSH First Nations is translated in the RVM. The subject heading can be subdivided geographically. You'll find an example on line 2. Next, on the table, you can see the use of the expressions peuple autochtone and Première Nation in two headings of the type classes of person. Please note that the expression First Nations is not present in LCSH. We have created several subject headings with Première Nation to translate headings created by Library and Archives Canada. I spoke to you a few minutes ago about the qualifier that had been removed. You have an example on the last line. Please note that this does not mean that all nation names have been corrected in the RVM. Far from it. We are continuing our work in co-creation with our partners to correct the names of the nation. but at least by removing the insulting word, it's a little better. So it seems to. Here's a concrete example of the changes in our catalogs. Here you can see the bibliographic record for Thomas King's famous essay. The record comes from WorldCat. On the right, you have the list of all subject headings. I've highlighted in yellow the changes made in French. What I want to show you here is that the changes were made in the bibliographic records, not just in the public display. Another example of profound change, cataloging in publication. BANQ, the National Library in Quebec, offers the cataloging in publication service to Quebec publishers. Now that the changes have been made in the RVM, the revised subject headings appear in the cataloging data and they are printed in new books published in Quebec. Finally, I'd like to talk about the changes we've made last spring. These mainly affected the Métis Nation. We were also able to correct some subject headings that were close but ill-defined. Now, subject heading definitions are clearer and indexing should be much more precise. To support the indexing teams, and of course the reference staff and the public, we have drawn up a document explaining what has been done so far, giving examples and justifying certain choices and decisions. The document is accessible to all free of charge, no need of an RVM subscription. You can find it on our website under the tab Indexing Tools or on the project page. What's currently available is the 5th version, October 1st. You might ask yourself, is it available in English? I'm sorry, no, it's in French only. The design has been made by Canessa Michel, an Innu student at Université Laval. Page 2, on the right part of the screen, shows the origin of the curves and traditional indigenous patterns used by Canessa in her design. I am quite proud of this document. Alexandre, one of our partners, told me at our first meeting to write a guide. He said, explain to people what you're doing. They're going to need help understanding. So right from the start, we planned and made the guide. And Michel Odette, assistant to the vice rector, academic and student affairs at Université Laval, and also a senator in Ottawa, told me over a year ago, Suzanne, don't hesitate to add color and beauty to what you do. It's a way of giving thanks, of being grateful. The first version of the guide was boring, but now our guide is very pretty and it reminds me to be grateful to all the people who helped me with this project. A little more on the guide. This is a page from the appendix that I wanted to show you. It's a table, several pages long, showing the new accepted heading, former headings, the LCSH and CSH equivalents, and some scope notes, examples, and clarification. The examples I showed you earlier are taken from this appendix. As a librarian at RVM and closely involved in this project, I'm proud to say that we've created and made available to everyone a special release, free of charge, which contains all subject headings modified to date as part of our revision project. For us, sharing this release is a gesture of gratitude to our First Peoples partners. We'd like this co-creative work to shine as brightly as possible. It is our way to say thank you. The release is available in two formats. The UTF-8 file contains the complete records in Mach 21 format. Libraries and documentation centers using systems that support the Mach 21 format should consider using this file with the free MarcEdit software. The Excel spreadsheet has 4 columns: new accepted headings, former headings, LC equivalents, and CSH equivalents. The file has several tabs. One tab lists all modified headings. The other tabs show grouping of subject headings. For example, generic vocabulary, peoples, classes of persons, Métis Nation, Wolastoqey Nation, etc. I've just told you what we've done so far. There is still a lot to do. Here are the next steps. Complete the work begun with the Innu Nation. Complete the work begun with the Inuit. Revise the corpus of subject headings related to literature. Take steps to find partners for the other nations present on Quebec territory. Continue our participation in other initiatives in Canada, the US, and internationally. We'll be keeping a close eye on the revision work to be carried out by the LC in the United States. This will certainly have a major impact on our project. And also everything that's in our blind spot. You know, the things we need to change without knowing we need to change it. This completes the presentation I had for you. It's time now for questions and I hope answers from me. Let's hear it. It can be comments too. I'd love to hear your reaction. So I think I'll stop to share my screen.
Well, thank you, merci, I do. Thank you so much, Suzanne. It was a very beautiful presentation, and we're so honored to be working with you and with RVM in a partnership that we have confirmed, I guess almost 2 years ago now. So really honored to be there, and the amazing work that you're doing. We just really appreciate it and want to recognize you for all of that. And I think it's so wonderful that we're able to share this work. Okay, so I think we're going to move on to some questions, and I believe that Stacy has the first one. I also wanted to let everyone know that you can raise your hand if you're uncomfortable with putting it into writing. You can also raise your hand and we'll notice it to be able to unmute you. Thank you.
Great. Just to let everyone know, we have about 20 minutes for questions. So we do have a good amount of time. The first question is from Sadie Anderson, and she asks, says, this is wonderful work. Do you have plans to keep adding and revising with the communities you've already engaged?
Sorry, do I have?
Are you going to be continuing to add and revise to the work that you've been doing with the communities you've already engaged?
That's something I would like to do. Yes, a lot of people at Université Laval Library ask me, "Okay, your project is started. When will it be finished?" And I always say, I hope it will be never finished. I hope that it's not a project, but a different way of thinking. I hope that we will always have in mind when we add subject headings, is that correct? Is that the best way to say that? Let me check with my partners. Let us check with our partners and make sure that it's okay, because it's a lot of work, and I would really like to not have to um, to do it again. I would like to for RVM to evolve um, as the same speed of society and um, stay updated. I don't know if that answers. Okay.
Well, I have to say that I think that that was the best answer, because we want to continue ongoing relationships and reciprocal work with each other. And I think that this is just really the beginning of some of this type of work. And so that's really the hope that we have. And thank you so much. I think that there's another question here from, and maybe Stacey wants to read it because as everyone knows, I can't do it.
So at first, it's a first gros merci. So a big thank you to RVM, and couldn't catalog without it. And I absolutely agree with that. So just as a general thank you to the whole RVM team for doing this important work that is really has international impact. Second, how many RVM Indigenous subject headings have been created with no LCSH equivalent? Very interesting questions. Well, there's this third question, but let's start with that first one. So how many headings have you created, do you think, that have no equivalent in LCSH?
I don't know that. I'm sorry. I don't know the answer. Sometimes the subject heading has only LCSH equivalents. Sometimes it has LCSH equivalent and CSH equivalent. Sometimes it's just CSH. I don't know. I'm sorry. It's a good question. I'll ask our technician. She's the one to be able to extract that number from our database.
Great. And so there's a third part of that question. Will there be an effort to add more Indigenous specific historical events as subject headings?
I would like that, and I think it's part of the things that we need to change without knowing that we need to change it. So I'm always aware of what I'm not seeing, and I think that our societies are evolving, and it will become more, I would say that I hope that with all the work done by Indigenous communities, we'll have a better knowledge of what is missing in the RVM, and we'll be able to put it in our database. But I think it needs a mentality change, and yeah, I'm hopeful that it will happen.
Well, thank you so much. I think that's really very interesting because I think this really gives us a lot of ideas and suggestions. So thank you so much for those questions and for your answer as well. I think one of the next questions is that from Susan Brown, and she wants to thank you for your presentation on this really impressive work. And she wondered if the RVM has plans to make itself and its linked data open. And it would be wonderful if there was a subset available through a special release.
A subset of, sorry, I didn't understand.
Maybe I can unmute Susan if she's willing to speak, and then she can ask you the question directly. Hopefully that's okay to be able to do that. I'm just going to find her name to be able to allow her to talk. Susan, are you able to do that?
Yes. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Merci beaucoup de votre présentation. That was fantastic. And I was very, very happy to hear that you plan to open RVM so it can be used as a vocabulary more easily by research projects and scholars and other groups. So that was fabulous news, and even better news that you have this special release of the vocabularies that you were talking about today. I was looking on your website to try to find those files, and I couldn't find them. So would you be able to say where on the website we could find those that special release?
You're right. It's a little bit tricky to find. If you go, I'll choose English. Okay. If you go to indexing tools, the last one is subject headings describing Indigenous peoples. So it's the guide I talked about. If you open that, sorry, the link is wrong. Well, the links for the special release are in the guide, and I'll check. It seems that the link is broken. I'll check that today with our technician. Link to the guide, but it's in the guide.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Great. So thanks, Susan. We have some questions actually over in the chat. And so the next question is there any internship opportunity for students to learn?
At RVM?
I think that's the context of the question, or what opportunities would there be for students to potentially learn about RVM?
Not that I'm aware of. Well, each year we welcome a library technician student, and for like 4 weeks, but the student goes to all the change. You see, acquisition and cataloging and reference, and they spend a day or two with us at RVM. That's about all we have for now.
Thank you very much. And I just wanted to say that there's been a lot of appreciation for your work in the chat. They wanted to say thank you for your ideas about a mentality change and working with Indigenous students focused on and communities focused on language reclamation. Is there a plan to incorporate more Indigenous languages into the subject heading categories and shaping that mentality shift?
So you mean, are we planning to integrate subject headings in other language than French and English?
Yes,
Indigenous
like
languages? For now, we don't have that kind of project. But since the RVM is now in linked data, I think that technologically speaking, it would be it will be possible to link some dictionaries of English of Indigenous language with what we're doing in RVM. But really, for now, the RVM is a product in French for French-speaking libraries with equivalent in English. But I think we have everything we need to integrate or maybe to link with something with other languages.
Thank you so much. I think that that's part of the work that we'll all be trying to undertake as we move forward. And I think that's really important to note. And I wondered, we do have a live question from Noah Lani, who's also on the Indigenous Advisory Board at TPP. And so I'm going to allow her to talk now and ask you.
Oh, that was my question. Sorry, and I wanted to say,
so that's
yeah, I raised my hand because I wanted to say that I meant the mentality. Comment that you made is really awesome. I really appreciated that. And I'm working right now with 4 Indigenous language reclamation, revitalization graduate students from different communities, including Akwesasne and Ganawage, and they want a place to use their Indigenous language, and they want to have more expansive domains where they can practice the exercise of that language, and that would include conducting their research in these repositories by punching in search terms in their language that would allow them to access the content that is focused on their communities. And I say this as a person working on a subject heading category project at the University of Hawaii. That's my community in Hawaii. And we are undertaking that process where we're starting to imagine subject heading categories in Hawaiian because of the robust success of our Indigenous language revitalization programs in Hawaii, where we currently have Hawaiian as an official status language of the state since the 1980s. It's written into our constitution, state constitution, and we have pre-K through PhD in Hawaiian language only immersion. And this is something that the students that I currently teach, who are from Guatemala, one from Swampy Cree territory, and here in Quebec, have scarcely imagined. And when we build these kinds of structures for our students and future generations, we do that work of reconciliation, and we also build into the systems, an insurance for Indigenous futurity of our knowledges. And that's kind of what I would bring to this conversation as a bridge to the excellent work you're doing at the Université Laval. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we are getting close to at time. So I'm going to just, if you've asked a question already, I'm just going to move to someone else. And I see that Bruno has, I think, more of a question than or more of a comment than a question. But Bruno, if you'd like to ask your question or make your comment live, that would be great. Or not. You're unmuted if you would like.
Bruno, you are unmuted.
Okay.
So maybe that, sorry about that.
This is me not wanting to try and read in French with as my older daughter says, my terrible accent, but I will just translate to say that Bruno says, inspirational and essential, and I think so. So bravo, Suzanne and the RVM team on all your just it's lovely comment. So thank you, Bruno, for that. And the next question here is uncooperative laptop. For Bruno. From Mackenzie Johnson is, from what I can see, the initial nations and peoples that RVM have given specific focus appear to have a geographic or historical connection to Quebec and or Francophone Canada. And that is very understandable. That being said, is there an interest for RVM to similarly translate vocabularies such as the Saskatchewan Indigenous subject headings or the Indigenous subject headings created by the Manitoba Archival Information Network?
Well, yes, for sure. In the first part of our project, we are focusing on the Quebec territory, but we want to revise all the subject headings. But I don't think it's reasonable to think that we will be able to contact partners from all the parts of Canada. So I would like to be able to use the work and the results obtained by other groups. For example, we have already used the work done by Saskatchewan libraries. We updated 3 subject headings about Cree Nation, Ne'ina, Ne'iya, Ni'ita, and I used the work done by Saskatchewan libraries. So I think for me, the NICLA project of a respectful terminology platform is really important, because I would really love to put our revised vocabulary on that platform and be able to use the work done by others to keep revise the subject headings in RVM. So that's why this project is so important for us. We want to do our part, and we want to use the work done by others, because alone we won't be able to revise everything.
Well, thank you so much for that answer. And I would say as well to Mackenzie that that's part of the work that we're attempting to do at the Respectful Terminology Platform Project, is to pull all of these various control vocabularies together to be able to work work on continuously through all of them. But I really appreciate that question, and I think that's really about the vision that we see of us all working together. So I just want to right now, we're really at time, and I want to say thank you so much. Madhu, merci, thank you. We really want to appreciate you for starting us off in such a good way with our fall webinar series, and look forward to continuing to work with you and with RVM as we move forward in this work. I just wanted to remind everybody that our next webinar, next installment in the webinar series is Monday, November 4th. And that it will be community building through international collaboration on multilingual LOD vocabulary nomenclature for museum cataloging. And so we're really happy that both Natalie and Tran will be with us from the Canadian Heritage Information Network. And we look forward to seeing many of you there. Also, too, this video will be posted on our YouTube channel, and so it will be viewed. It will be available for viewing along with the rest of the series. So thank you so much for joining us, and I want to wish you all a very happy Friday and a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.